said something so far. Let's go back to Hebrews in the Word of God, and we'll talk some more about this. I forgot what I called this now, but this is talking about or right living is what I called this, and here in Hebrews in chapter 12, it starts out with the positive. He says, look unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. But he says, under the conditions that we're in, we've got all these witnesses, those that have lived before us. And I addressed, it's not as if they're up there in a cathedral, looking down on us. It's that their lives have been a witness to us, and they've been an example. The history of their life, the remembrance of their life, was that they didn't yet receive what we're getting to live in, but they died in faith. They were trusting God. They see that, and that's the key. It's not that we get to necessarily that end that we're looking for, but that we remain faithful all the way through. We'll receive that prize, as in eternity and relationship with God, and the completion of our sanctification and becoming one with God. All of that takes place, but until then, we're showing ourselves faithful. And he says, looking unto Jesus. This term, keeping your eyes on Jesus or looking unto Jesus, there in verse 1, he says, let us strip away every weight that slows us down, and especially every sin that easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race that God has put before us. And then verse 2, we do this by looking unto Jesus, or keeping our eyes on Jesus, and the author, or it says the champion who initiates our perfect faith. I love that. He's the author and he's the finisher. He begins it and he finishes it. You've heard the term before. I'm going to start this fight. You may start this fight, but I'm going to finish it. Or whatever term like that. That's Jesus did it. And when he sat down at the right hand of the Father, he said it is finished on the cross. He was saying, look, everything is done. Everything is needed done is done. It's complete in me. So we got to look unto Jesus for that. But that phrase, keep your eyes on Jesus, or locking in on him, in the Greek it signifies a undivided attention, looking away from all other distractions. So it's not just looking at Jesus. It's being intentional to look away from everything else. And Sunday's sermon with Jason was talking about being intentionality. I had a conversation with another man yesterday talking about that very thing, how we have to be intentional about a life with Christ and looking unto Jesus, because there's all these other things that want to distract us and pull us away. It's real easy to get focused on other things, or be distracted by and drawn away by other things. The wonderful thing about the grace of God is, and the goodness of God is that when we recognize and realize that, wait a minute, I'm over here, I'm focused on, this thing instead of Christ. You can have other things in your life, sure, but what's your number one thing? What's your focus on? And locking in on that, it says looking away from other distractions in order to fix one's gaze on one object. That really is the way we succeed in so many things. I mean, think about this. If you're not singularly focused on something, at least when you're doing it, like I'm thinking about our hobbies, like when we rope, or when we are, if I'm playing guitar, if you were playing golf, if I'm hunting or whatever, I have to be intentional and focused, giving that my attention for the time period. Well, with a relationship with God, some people, they do it when they go to church, but as soon as they walk out the door, it's like they're looking unto everything else, keeping him in the center of our life all the time, as our central focus. he'll allow us to get everything else done. But keeping our eyes fixed on him, that keeps us out of places of fear. That keeps us out of place of being led by our flesh. I was reading down through this chapter 12, and at one point it says, don't be ungodly like Esau. Esau and Jacob had an opportunity to get the father's blessing. They had a birthright. The situation came down to Esau had it, but he gave it up because he was so hungry in his pursuit of satisfying and gratifying his flesh. In the moment, he gave up everything else. Now, think about this, and I'm not turning over to that. I may do that though for another study. But in the moments, that felt like that had to be done. That was the best thing. But what it did is it cost him greatly later on. Big part of this chapter is talking about how sometimes we get weary, and there in verse 3, he says, think of all the hostility endured from sinful people, referring to Jesus. He's the one we're looking to as our example, following him. But he says, then you won't become weary and give up when you're struggling. See, I want to make sure that, and this is what the Lord is just, as I'm teaching this, he's just showing this to me, that there's some of you that could be in that place of weariness, and you get in that place where you're not sure if you can make it on, remembering what Jesus did, thinking about him, but making sure that we realign our life. The grace and the mercy of God gives us that opportunity to do that when we realize, you know what, I got distracted. I got my focus over here on something that it didn't need to be on. I'm going to align myself. I'm going to bring myself back into that place of looking unto Jesus. And I'm not going to be weary because of. Now, I started thinking about a lot of different areas of our life. There can be times where you get weary of maybe a relationship, maybe a job setting, maybe the period of time of not having enough money, or not having enough time, or not getting to do the things you want to do. And then people will begin to make bad decisions based on that weariness. All of a sudden you've realized, man, you feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting where I need to be. Here's what, looking unto Jesus, keeping our faith and trust in him, making sure that we're not making decisions based on those temporal things like our flesh, things that are temporary, things that are subject to change, things that in time will change, but yet we make a rash decision, or we just finally get weary and say, you know what, I just can't do this anymore. I just got it, and making a rash decision. Making sure that sometimes we have to make rash decisions, but they need to be because or while we're in that place of having our eyes on Jesus, fixed on him, and not while we're off course or distracted by something else. When you start to get weary, what do we do? What should we do? We come back to God. We say, God, you are my strength and you are my life. And you lock your eyes back on him. Because here's the thing. When we compare the struggles of our life, maybe a season of disappointment, maybe a time where, the feelings just aren't there in your marriage. Maybe in the times that you just, it's like, man, I just, this doesn't seem to be changing. I feel like I'm come back to God, ask him for strength, guide him, and think about what Jesus endured for you. Man, I tell you what, he is our example. Look unto him, Lord. If you can carry all that you carried to get through the experience of the cross, and for me, then I'm going to look unto you for the strength, because he gives us that strength to get through this season. I'm not going to get weary I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to come back to you. Now, he goes on, and we won't talk about it today because I need to wrap this up. But he goes on into verse 7 through about, 12 or 13. And he talks about God's discipline. And discipline is the correction of, it's not abuse, it's the correction of the wrong things. God will show us the correction of our ways. In our relationship with him, it would be correction of sin. In our problem, in the situation, we need to hear, we need to receive, we need to have instruction that guides us in how do I fix the problem of my heart. Esau was totally led by his flesh. He said, all I want is a bowl of stew. All I want is my belly full right now. I'll give you anything. He was so caught up in his flesh, in his physical need, that he gave up something that was extremely valuable. And so don't give up your relationship, the setting, the thing. It may be that something needs to change, but it needs to change in God's time, not my flesh time, not my emotions time. All right? So I don't know who that's for. That's pretty pointed, but allow that. I know that's for, it's for all of us at some point. We've all been in those places. Don't be led except by God, and that's by keeping our eyes on Jesus. So go out today, take that word. If you're trying to figure out exactly how that's speaking to you, spend time with the Lord. If you're a little bit off, say, God, forgive me, or God, help me, guide me. I will to be in time with you. I'm going to look unto you. I'm going to be led by my spirit, man, and not by my flesh. And I believe God will absolutely transform, change, and direct your life. So be blessed in all that you do today. Man, I just encourage you. It's the middle of the week. It's Wednesday. Stay strong and go get them for Jesus. Amen. I love y'all.